Have you ever followed a recipe that sounded complete until you actually tried to make it? Not the kind with the wrong ingredients, the kind that says things like cook until done, stir occasionally, or bake until golden. Like, that means the same thing in every kitchen. And halfway through, you realize the problem is not you. The instructions left out the conditions that actually matter. That's a lot like AI prompt building for teachers. A prompt can sound clear and the output can look polished, but if you leave out the learning target, the evidence you want, or the materials you want it grounded in, you usually get something that looks finished without truly being useful. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Welcome to Science Wise. I'm Peter Weise. I've been teaching for 23 years, 18 of that in Kentwood, mostly high school chemistry, physics, and the science of cooking right now. And today we're looking about how to build better AI prompts from your own class materials so the tool does not just give you something polished, it gives you something instructionally useful. Okay, here's the thing. This episode is not about magic words. It's not about learning one secret prompt formula that suddenly makes every tool brilliant. The key idea is much simpler than that. Start with what students need to learn, then decide what evidence would actually show that learning. Then build the prompt around those two things. That order matters because the mistake people make is starting with the product. Make me a worksheet, make me a discussion prompt, make me a lab handout, make me a writing activity, and AI is very good at giving you something that looks schoolish. Clean format, nice wording, probably a table somewhere. Very impressive, very printable. Sometimes very useless. So here's the rule. Pick the evidence first. Pause there for a second. Pick the evidence first. If I'm teaching chemistry and I want students to explain how particle motion changes from solid to liquid to gas, I need to know what counts as evidence. Is it a labeled diagram, a short written explanation, a verbal defense, a transfer question to new context? Once I know that, now I can ask AI to help. Before that, I'm basically asking it to decorate a lesson-shaped object. And yes, lesson-shaped object is a real category now. Here's a quick process that makes this more usable. First, write the learning target in one sentence. Not the topic, the target, not states of matter. More like, students explain how particle motion and spacing changes across solid, liquid, and gas. Next, name the evidence type, product, process, or performance. Do it in plain language. What will students make, show, or do that lets you tell whether they understand? Then, and only then, build the prompt. So teacher talk might sound like this. My learning target is students explain particle motion and spacing across states of matter. The evidence I want is one annotated diagram, one short explanation, and one check for common misconception. Build me a short practice task that requires those three things. This is already a much better prompt than make me a chemistry worksheet on states of matter. What students do is clearer too. They're not just filling in blanks, they're modeling, explaining, and checking. And what I'm looking for is also clear. I'm listening for correct vocabulary. I'm looking for whether the diagram matches the explanation, and I'm watching to see whether they can catch a wrong but plausible idea. If this goes sideways, it's usually because the evidence is too vague, so the fix is simple. Tighten the evidence. Say exactly what you want the students to produce. Now let's apply that to another discipline because this is not just a science move. A colleague in ELA might upload an assignment directions, the rubric, and 2 shared readings, then prompt the tool like this. Create a pre-writing activity that requires students to choose stronger claims, justify it with evidence from readings, and name one counter-argument. Do not draft the essay. Include a short success checklist and 2 common pitfalls. That's strong because it preserves thinking. Students are choosing, justifying, and anticipating. They are not outsourcing the writing and pretending the learning came along for the ride. Now here's where it gets weird. Even a prompt with a clear target can still be too easy to fake. That's where the next move comes in. Add constraints that make thinking visible. Your prompt should usually require at least 2 of these moves: a decision point, a verification step, a local anchor from your class material, a transfer version in a new context, or a process artifact, meaning something that shows how the students got there. In other words, do not just ask for an answer, ask for a choice, a check, or a connection. So teacher talk might sound something like this. Students must choose one method and explain why, or students must verify one answer before submitting, Or students must connect this to our lab, our reading, or our notes from class. This matters because polished outputs is not the same thing as understanding. Your reference documents hammer that point pretty clearly, and they are right to do it. Product-only evidence has gotten weaker in an AI-saturated world, so the answer is better design. Here's another quick example I see a lot. A teacher wants a warm-up on a controlled experiment. First prompt, make me a worksheet on controlled experiments. The result looks fine, but it's generic, disconnected from yesterday's lab, and honestly kind of forgettable. The second prompt, use our lab vocabulary, create a warm-up where students identify the independent variable, dependent variable, and control in one flawed experiment setup. Then explain what needs to be fixed and why. Now we're somewhere. Same tool, different prompt, better task. And if you teach math, this move works beautifully. Ask for a problem where a student chooses a method, estimates first, and then verifies whether the answer is reasonable. This one change keeps mathematical judgment in the room. So a quick brain checkpoint for a moment. Students still need enough in-head knowledge to tell when something is off. Background knowledge matters. Working memory is still limited. Verification is still a real skill. AI didn't cancel any of that. If anything, it makes it more obvious. Your reference docs keep coming back to that point, and current teaching guidance does too. So UNESCO's guidance frames AI use in education as something that still needs a human judgment, supervision, and a pedagogy at the center, not just access to tools. So when we add a verification step, that's not busy work, that's part of learning. So pause for 5 seconds to jot this down. A better prompt includes the conditions that actually matter. Okay, keep going. The third move is a source-grounded prompt building. This is the one that saves the most frustration. Instead of prompting from scratch, build from your own class materials, your notes, your rubric, your model response, your lab handout, your text set, your worked example, maybe 2 or 5 sources, not 27 tabs in a prayer. Then tell the tool to use only those materials. This might sound like, use only the attached unit notes and rubric. Then, tell me which source supports each major part. Then, revise it so it matches my rubric and includes 2 likely misconceptions. This is one reason Notebook LM keeps coming up in teacher conversations. Notebook LM chat responses are based on your uploaded sources and provide citations back to those sources, which makes it easier to check where the ideas came from. And Gemini for Education is a school-focused offering with enterprise-grade data protection where data is not human-reviewed or used to train AI models. That matters if your district uses those tools, though your exact setup still depends on local admin settings. So tool-agnostic versions, though, because tools are secondary here. Even if you're not using Notebook LM or Gemini, the principle still holds. Start from your class documents. Ground the prompt in the materials that already define your course. And a social studies teacher can do this really well with DBQs or source sets. A colleague might upload a packet, then ask a tool to create a sourcing chart or a claim evidence organizer that stays inside those documents instead of drifting into generic history summary mode. Now let's do a fast prompt quality check. It's just kind of the filter that saves you from printing something dumb. Ask 3 questions. Could a student paste and submit this? Can I actually see their thinking? And does this match the level of AI use I intended? If the answer to the first question is yes, the task probably needs revision. Add a decision, add a verification step, add a connection to the class materials, add a short defense, something that makes thought visible. Cornell's teaching guidance lands in a similar place. Their assignment design advice starts by telling instructors to affirm what they actually want to assess and create transparent materials and communicate expectations clearly. In other words, decide what you mean to measure before you decide what the task looks like. That lines up really well with your outline. Here's what this sounds like in the classroom. Today you can use AI to help generate practice questions, but your final explanation has to be your own words and has to include the class vocabulary from our notes. Or you can use AI to help you brainstorm claims, but you still need to choose the stronger claim, back it with evidence from our reading, and explain one counter-argument. Or you can use AI as a coach, but not as a final author. Those lines are short, but they matter because they tell the students where the thinking still lives. A few pitfalls before we close. First, if a student can hand the output in with almost no thinking added, the design is weak. Second, forgetting to define acceptable evidence. If you do not name what the students need to show, AI will usually optimize it for neatness, not learning. Third, trusting the first draft too much. AI drafts. Teachers finalize. That's the workflow. Not because teachers are anti-tech, because teachers are the ones who know the target, the misconceptions, the class pacing, and the difference between looks fine and will this work 5th hour on a Tuesday? And one more thing. Research and guidance right now is pretty consistent in a big direction here. Keep AI use human-centered, transparent, and aligned to what you actually want students to learn. But broad guidance is still broad guidance. It does not hand you tomorrow's warm-up. You still have to translate into classroom moves. So here's your try it this week. Take one learning target you already teach and build 3 versions of a task from it. One anchor task, one AI as a coach practice task, and one AI as a collaborator task. Same target, 3 versions. Start with the evidence you want, then add one decision point and one verification step. That's it. Success looks like this. At least one of those AI build tasks is a classroom ready after a light teacher edit instead of a full rewrite. And even better, you can tell clearly how the evidence shifts across the 3 versions. If you want a very fast start, use this sentence frame. My learning target is, the evidence I want is, use only these materials. Build a task that requires one decision, one verification step, and one connection to classroom content. That's not fancy, it's just useful. The key idea is this: good prompt building is not a tech trick, it's an instructional design. The goal is not a prettier output, the goal is a better fit for the learning. And that's actually good news because it means that the skill that matters most here is still teaching judgment. You already have that. AI just raises the stakes on how clearly you name the conditions that matter. If you try this with one of your classes, or you build a prompt frame that actually saves you time without lowering the quality, send me the example or send me the questions that come from it. Real classroom questions are the best fuel for where this podcast goes next. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.